Hello there, and welcome to our week one assessment. You're making it through the first week. Yay! Hopefully, you enjoyed the forum conversations regarding normality. And I've seen in the forums that you guys offered a lot of great words and had some good conversations regarding normality. And I thought it might be kind of fun to add something to the conversation, our assessment of the past week, by taking psychology and applying it to media, especially with the issue of what's going to be called as normalization. Okay, so with normalization, what this means is that media is trying to take something that is abnormal and make it normal. And that's normalization. Here's kind of how this works and what the how the breakdown works step by step for you. So the first goal that happens is that they have to make it be viewed as common. That doesn't mean that it is viewed as the majority or anything like that. The idea is that media will say that, hey, this is abnormal, but it's not that rare. It's actually fairly common. And they do this through repetition. Multiple shows, having characters dealing with it, or having it being a plot line, being people that are in advertisements, or whatever the case is. Like if it's going to be a divorce issue, it's all these characters in the show are either divorced or they know somebody who is, or a loved one is, or whatever the case is. And so they take something that is abnormal and they make it be viewed as something that is common. So through repetition, that is something that is taking place on a regular basis. Then it becomes something that is to be accepted. Not accepted as in being moral, not accepted as in, hey, it's a okay. This accepted means that it is common. Therefore, I'm just going to accept that it exists and I'm not going to push back on it anymore. I'm not going to talk against it. I'm not going to rail against it. I'm just going to just accept that it's there because what to do? It's common enough that you can't change it. So you just tolerate its existence. Okay. So what is abnormal is viewed as common through repetition. And then once it's viewed as common, then the idea is that people will then just accept that it exists. Once it's been accepted in its existence, it then becomes sought after. And by sought after, what I mean is that the sought after is the younger generation, predominantly high school students, are seeking after whatever is being normalized. This is on average that this is what's being done. Again, not every normalization uses this technique, but this is what on average is done. Usually psychologists offer a different term for sought after. Their term is contagion. Okay, this contagion. So in the 1980s and the 1990s, there was a big push on understanding eating disorders, anorexia, bulimia, etc. And so they would talk about eating disorders. They were concerned about high schoolers having eating disorders, and on it would go. Well, it ended up being that it was so presented in the media that it was common that it became accepted that we have eating disorder problems and we can talk about it, but ultimately we just accept that eating disorders exist and we're not going to necessarily make a big fuss about it, but we're going to talk about it. It then became a contagion. And as it became a contagion, what happened is there were kids in school who did not have an eating disorder, but they wanted one. Yeah, I know that sounds weird, but they wanted one. They were either marginalized in school or they were like an outcast or feeling out of place. And then if they could have an eating disorder and identify with it, then they would be popular in school. Whenever these issues got talked about, they got to be included in it and became more popular. And this has actually been recognized by Brown University and Princeton University as happening today in high schools regarding the LGBTQ movement, where a lot of high schoolers who are not LGBTQ are identifying as a contagion issue. And people are the professors at Brown University, which is a secular university, are concerned about the contagion because they're having a hard time assessing who actually has this and who doesn't, because the contagion is making all the lines very, very blurry. Okay. And so we're seeing this process happening even still today. Then, after it has become sought after by the youth of a society, it then becomes desired by businesses because they want to attract the attention and business of the youth. Okay, and so this is why the youth demographic, the high schoolers and the college students are like the key demographic for TV shows, for rating shares, and these are the sought after people for and the desired clientele by retail stores and malls and shopping is because if they see that these kids are seeking after something, then they want to speak into it too, to include them, to attract them, to gain their business and attention so that they could be hip and be connected with the younger crowd. And so that which was abnormal was presented through repetition as being common so that it would be accepted and not railed against, and then sought after by the younger generation, and then desired by corporations. And once it's been desired by corporations, then the abnormal has just become the norm. Not norm as in majority, not norm as in over 50% or anything like that, just norm as in, hey, it's not abnormal. It's common enough to say, why are you calling it weird? It's normal. It is what we're seeing occurring all over the place. This is normal. And then once that abnormal has become norm through this process, what happens afterward is the last step of demonization. That means that those who hold to the original norm and still view the new norm as abnormal, those people are demonized. Those people are viewed as the opposition, the extremers, the people that are not conforming. And so they're completely demonized. And what's fascinating is that this process of normalization, where media is using this, is the real driving force. Ever since the 1960s, with the Port Huron Statement and Jane Fonda and Tom Hayden, Hollywood has been the driving force for normalization of abnormal social issues. And almost always, and just note almost, this normalization process goes against and away from God's standard, away from biblical morality and biblical truth, which is a fascinating direction. It is called the deviant down. And it's kind of the way of understanding this is the deviant down. So, from a sociological point of view, the deviant down works like this: that you might have, just hypothetically speaking, moral being this line. This stands as the moral altitude. And then deviant would be down here at the bottom line. This is deviant behavior. This is behavior that is immoral, away from the moral norm. And then you have within society usually a blend of the two, but you would desire that society to be more moral than deviant. Okay, and so that would be the expectation. So maybe society would be here, and you would have some people that are more moral than others, so it averages out at this yellow line. Well, what happens with the normalization process is that it is asked of society to lower the line down one. Hey, here's divorce. It's sure it's deviant, and you'd want people to stay together. You'd want marriages to stay together and healthy. But you know what? Divorces are happening, and they'll shoot out statistics, right or wrong, and they'll exaggerate things. They'll make the abnormal appear common, and on it will go, and it will go through the process. And then telling society we just need to lower the bar down and just accept that this is happening, and that we can't just slough these people off as being deviant. And so then you're asked to lower the bar down a line. So once that bar goes down a line, everything above it shifts down with it. So now this is the moral line, because once the lower line is considered normal, those the line above are considered your hypermoral people. But now what about this new line that's above even that? Well, those are the extremists. Those are the hyper conservatives, the alt right, and all of that type of thing, because they're holding to the original morality and the original understanding of norm. But then they want to bring the line down again. Because they say, hey, what about abortion? Hey, what about homosexuality? Hey, what about, and on it goes. They want to keep bringing the line down. And as the line continues to move down, what happens is that which was deviant becomes viewed as moral. So then deviant behavior is considered moral behavior. And anybody who holds to the original norm are not just extremists, they're the enemy. They're way out there. In fact, they are actually deviant because the line is so far up, it actually has flipped the scale upside down. They're the deviant ones. They're the ones that are the abnormal, and they're the enemy. Okay, and so that's kind of how the whole process works between the idea of normalization in the media and the deviant down process. Well, I hope this was interesting to you. I hope you are you learned something from it and that it was exciting for you. And so I hope to see you next week as we continue on this process of learning together and growing together. Feel free to leave comments below if you'd like to furthermore discuss these issues, and we'll see you guys online.